Hello, family. Tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comment section, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because today's story, and this one will sit heavy on your chest. Now, let's begin. Chapter 1. The Woman at the Market. I always believed a wedding ring has its own memory, that it remembers the warmth of the hands that kept it, the promises whispered over it, the tears shed beside it. Mine certainly did. For 8 years, it sat on my finger like a quiet promise, steady, simple, golden, the one thing in my marriage that never changed. Or so I thought. It happened on a slow Thursday afternoon, the kind that holds its breath. I had gone to the local market to buy vegetables. Nothing dramatic, nothing unusual. Just life, moving softly, the way it does before everything turns. I was bending over a basket of tomatoes when a woman brushed past me. She wasn't in a hurry. Her movement was gentle, unbothered, like someone who had slept peacefully the night before. I noticed her perfume first, something warm, like vanilla heated in the sun. Then I noticed her hands. Not the face, not the dress, not the voice. Her hands, because on her left hand, as she tucked her hair behind her ear, I saw it. My wedding ring. I didn't question it at first. My brain refused to accept the sight. Maybe it only looked like mine. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe I was imagining it. But I wasn't. The design was unmistakable. A thin gold band with a tiny, barely noticeable dent on the underside. A dent created the night my husband and I moved into our first apartment, when he accidentally dropped the ring while laughing. I froze. A slow, heavy, dangerous stillness. The woman noticed me staring. She gave a small, polite smile, the kind given to strangers who stand too close. And I, with my throat burning and my heart thumping against my ribs, pointed at her ring. "Excuse me, where did you get that?" Her smile softened, like she had been waiting for the question all along. "Oh, this," she said, lifting her hand lightly, letting the ring catch the afternoon sun. "It was gifted to me." Gifted. The word sliced through me. Gifted. A ring that was placed on my finger on a rainy wedding morning. Gifted. I stared at her, trying to breathe, trying to remember if I had slept well the night before, trying to understand if life had suddenly shifted without warning. Gifted by who? I managed to ask, and the woman, calm and steady, gave me a name that turned my bones to water. She said my husband's name, clearly, softly, without hesitation. At that moment, the market around me went quiet, like someone had pressed pause on the world. The chatter, the rustling leaves, the clatter of crates, they all faded. All I could hear was the echo of her words. "My husband gave you that?" I whispered. She nodded, not ashamed, not defensive, not scared, just truthful. And somehow that scared me more than anything else. Before I could ask anything else, a man called her name from across the market. She smiled politely again, waved at me, and walked away, her hand swinging naturally at her side, my ring glinting lazily in the sunlight. I stood there long after she disappeared, clutching my basket of tomatoes like it was the only thing holding me to the earth. The world had not ended, but something inside me had cracked loudly enough for only me to hear it. And deep inside that crack, a question was forming. A question I wasn't ready to face. Because if my husband gave her that ring, what exactly did I still have left? Chapter 2. The silence in his eyes. I didn't go home immediately. I wasn't ready to face the walls that had heard my laughter, my whispers, my prayers. The house where my wedding ring had slept on my finger every night, while apparently living a second life on another woman's hand. So I walked, aimlessly, slowly letting the streets carry me. My mind kept circling the same question like a moth trapped around a flame. Why? Why her? Why the ring? Why now? By the time I reached our gate, the sun was sinking, painting the sky the same dull gold as the band that used to belong to me. My husband, Daniel, was in the living room, sitting with the remote in one hand and a half-finished cup of tea beside him. When he saw me walk in, he smiled, that gentle, familiar smile that once felt like home. But that evening, it felt like a locked door. "You're back early," he said. "Early?" I had spent nearly an hour wandering in circles, trying to gather my broken thoughts. But his voice was calm, his tone ordinary. I watched him, really watched him. The way he held the remote, the slow blink, the soft exhale. Nothing about him looked like a man who had given another woman his wife's wedding ring. "Daniel," I said quietly. He turned. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse him. I simply asked, "Where's my ring?" He frowned slightly, a slow crease carefully placed. "Your ring? It's on your dresser, isn't it?" I held his gaze. He held mine. Something in the air shifted. Small, almost invisible, like the moment before a candle dies. "Go and check," I told him. He stood, walked into our bedroom, and I listened as he opened the drawer. Silence. Not just silence, a heavy one, the kind that knows too much. He walked back out slowly, his face pale. It's not there," he whispered. I nodded, not because I was calm, but because the truth was finally taking shape, painful and cold. "Daniel," I asked softly, "did you give my ring to someone?" His mouth opened, then closed. No words, just a trembling breath. I stepped closer. I saw it. I whispered, "On her hand, at the market." His shoulders sank, not in guilt, not in fear, but in something else. Something like resignation. He sat down, rubbing his forehead with both hands. For a long moment, he didn't speak, and I didn't push him. I just stood there, letting the quiet unravel both of us. Finally, he lifted his head. "I was going to tell you," he said. Those 6 words chilled my skin. I was going to tell you. It wasn't a denial. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't surprise. It was acceptance, like he had already rehearsed this moment. My heartbeat drummed in my ears. "Tell me what, Daniel?" He swallowed hard. His eyes avoided mine, drifting instead to the floor, the wall, the cup, anywhere but my face. "I didn't give it to her romantically," he began. I flinched, the way a person does when you poke a wound still fresh. He continued, voice trembling slightly. "She's connected to my past, to something I never wanted to drag into our marriage." I felt my breath catch. His past, the past he had always brushed aside. The past he claimed wasn't worth discussing. I stepped closer. "Daniel, what past?" He shook his head. "I can't explain it all at once. It's complicated." Complicated. A word that always means pain is coming. "Then start somewhere," I whispered. He opened his mouth to speak. But then someone knocked on our front door. A soft knock. Gentle. Almost apologetic. Daniel froze. His entire body stiffened like a man who recognized danger long before it came inside. The knock came again, and he whispered, barely audible, She wasn't supposed to come here." My stomach dropped. The woman from the market was standing at our door. Chapter 3. The visitor at the door. The knock echoed again, soft, steady, almost respectful. But inside me, everything rattled. Daniel stood frozen in the middle of the room, his eyes fixed on the door the way a man might stare at a grave he hoped would stay closed. "Daniel," I whispered, "is that her?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The silence between us delivered the truth gently, but it still cut deep. Another knock. 3 taps this time. I walked toward the door slowly, every step heavy with questions I wasn't ready to ask. Daniel reached out, almost grabbing my arm, but stopped short. His hand hovered helplessly in the air. "Please," he murmured, "let me speak to her first." I didn't respond. I turned the handle. The door opened with a soft sigh, and there she stood, the same woman from the market, the same warm vanilla scent, the same calm eyes. But now she wasn't smiling. She looked nervous, like someone walking into a confession she had delayed too long. "Good evening," she said gently. I stared at her hand. The ring was still there, my ring shining under the porch light like it knew it didn't belong. Daniel stepped behind me. Her eyes found him immediately, not with longing, not with possession, but with recognition, a quiet familiarity that made my stomach twist. "Daniel," she whispered, "I told you I wouldn't come unless it was important." He exhaled shakily, rubbing the back of his neck. "You shouldn't be here." "I know," she replied softly, "but you left me no choice." My fingers tightened around the doorframe. "Someone explain what's happening." The woman looked at me, really looked, with an expression that wasn't arrogant or challenging, but sympathetic, like she pitied the pain she knew was coming. "My name is Miriam," she said, "and I think you deserve to know the truth." I folded my arms. "Start with the ring." She sighed, a deep, tired sound, as if she had carried the weight of this moment for years. "This ring, it wasn't a gift in the way you think," she said. "I didn't ask for it. I didn't even want it." Daniel stepped closer. His voice was low, tight. "Miriam—" "No," she interrupted gently. "She deserves honesty. Both of you deserve it." I could feel the room inside me tightening, the walls closing in. I glanced between them. "What is she to you?" I asked Daniel. "Who is she?" Before he could speak, Miriam answered. "Your husband and I—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "We knew each other long, before you two ever met." A chill brushed my spine. "Daniel!" I whispered. He nodded slowly. "Before my life changed," he said, his voice strained. "Before I tried to start over." Miriam continued, her eyes softening. "We grew up in the same neighborhood. Our families were tied together in ways that weren't always kind." That sentence alone carried shadows. I swallowed. "And the ring?" Miriam lifted her hand, the gold band glowing faintly. "This ring was supposed to be protection," she said. "Not affection, not romance. Protection?" I repeated. "From what?" She hesitated, and for a moment, fear flickered in her eyes. "That dent on the underside," she said softly. "It wasn't made on your wedding day. It was made years before, the night Daniel protected me from someone who meant harm." My breath trembled. Daniel looked away, shame settling on his shoulders like an old coat. "He didn't want to keep the ring," Miriam said. "He didn't want reminders. So he gave it to me years before he even knew you." I stared at her, stunned. "Years before me?" I whispered. "Then why was it on my finger on our wedding day?" Daniel finally spoke, his voice raw. "Because I asked her for it back," he said, "the morning I proposed to you." My jaw dropped. You used her ring to marry me?" He nodded painfully. "I couldn't afford a new ring then. I didn't want to tell you about my past. I didn't want to explain the night that dent was made. I wanted a clean beginning." Miriam looked at me, eyes full of apology. "And now," she said softly, "the past he tried to bury has finally come knocking." Daniel whispered, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." But I was no longer listening to apologies. A realization hit me, cold, heavy, unmistakable. If the ring belonged to her first, then maybe the secrets did too. Chapter 4: The Story Behind the Dent. The living room felt smaller than it had ever been. Not because the walls were closing in, but because the truth was finally taking shape in the center of the room. And truth has a way of filling every corner. Miriam stepped inside slowly, as if crossing a sacred boundary. Daniel hovered behind me, his breaths uneven, like each inhale carried regret, and each exhale carried fear. I didn't sit. I couldn't. The weight in my chest wouldn't let me. I watched Miriam lower herself into the single chair near the window. She looked around the room, the photographs, the bookshelves, the little things that made up our life, not with envy, but with grief, as though she knew she was about to tear down a door Daniel had spent years trying to keep shut. "Please," I said finally, my voice low, tired, trembling. "Tell me everything." Miriam intertwined her fingers, staring down at her hands, the ring glinting faintly. "The dent," she began softly, "was made on a night neither of us has ever forgotten." Daniel flinched. She continued, "We were 17, just children pretending to be strong." Her voice cracked slightly. "We lived in a neighborhood where secrets were currency and silence was the only way to survive." I felt a chill lace up my spine. "There was a man," she said, her tone darkening. "A man everyone feared. He had an interest in me, one my family couldn't stop, and one I couldn't escape." She paused, fighting emotion. "That night," she whispered, "I ran, barefoot, shaking, with nothing but a thin jacket and fear soaking through my bones." She closed her eyes. "I hid where I thought no one would find me, behind the old metal gate behind our school." My throat tightened. I could see the scene in my mind, a frightened girl in the dark, clutching hope like it could shield her. "Daniel found me," she continued, "not because I called him, not because he knew, but because he always noticed me." Daniel looked down at the floor, jaw clenched. He saw my jacket torn. He saw my arm bleeding. And before I could say a word, the man who followed me stepped out from the shadows. The air in the room grew still. "That man grabbed my arm," she said softly. Daniel tried to push him off, but he was older, stronger, crueler. A tear slipped down her cheek. The man threw me to the ground. My hand landed on something cold, metal, a ring Daniel used to wear. I blinked. A ring. That ring. When I tried to crawl away, the man reached for me again. And Daniel, her voice broke. Daniel grabbed the ring from the dirt and hit him with it. The room spun for a moment. My heart throbbed painfully. Miriam lifted her hand. "That dent," she whispered, tracing it with her thumb, "came from the impact." I covered my mouth, a sharp gasp escaping. Daniel finally spoke, his voice rough with old pain. "I didn't mean to hurt him. He swallowed hard. I just needed him to stop." Miriam nodded, tears spilling. "And he did. He stumbled back and left. But after he ran off, someone saw us. Someone who hated gossip less than he loved chaos." Daniel exhaled shakily. Everything got louder after that. Accusations, threats, fear. Miriam looked at me, her eyes exhausted. My family blamed Daniel for everything. They said he dishonored their name. His own family turned against him, afraid of the man's revenge. Daniel looked away, ashamed. "I had nowhere to go," Miriam said. "Daniel had no one willing to protect him, so he gave me the ring." "To pawn it," Daniel murmured quietly. "To start over. To run if she had to. But I didn't pawn it," Miriam said. "I kept it, because that night, that ring saved my life." The room was silent again, but not the heavy, suffocating kind. A softer one, a respectful one. I sank slowly into the sofa, emotions swirling, sorrow, confusion, betrayal, empathy, all tangled. "So," I whispered, "that ring belonged to both of you long before it belonged to me." Miriam nodded painfully. "It was never meant to be part of your marriage," she said. "But Daniel asked for it back years later. He said he needed to erase the past." Daniel's voice was almost a whisper. "I wanted a fresh start. I thought using a ring with history, our history, would make it easier to let go of everything. My eyes burned with raw emotion. But you didn't let go, I said softly. You only hid it. Daniel bowed his head. I was trying to protect you from the darkest part of me. Miriam wiped her tears. And now, she said quietly, he needs to protect you from what's coming next. I stiffened. What's coming next? I asked. Miriam swallowed, fear flickering in her eyes. The man from our past, she whispered. He's back, and he thinks Daniel still owes him. Daniel stood abruptly, panic flaring across his face. He came to me last week, Miriam continued. He wants the ring back, and he wants something else too. I felt my heartbeat stop. What does he want? I asked, voice trembling. Miriam turned her eyes to me. You, she whispered. He wants you. Chapter 5. The Debt That Followed Us. For a long moment, I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The room felt colder, like someone had cracked open a window to let winter in. Miriam's words hung in the air. He wants you. Me? A woman who'd never met this ghost from their past. A woman who had nothing to do with that night behind the school gate. But that's the thing about some people. Some dangers don't need to know you to ruin your life. They only need a reason. And he had one. What do you mean he wants me? I whispered, my voice hollow. Miriam inhaled deeply, pressing a shaky hand against her chest. He found out Daniel got married, she said, and in his twisted mind, hurting someone you love is the same as hurting you. Daniel stepped forward, desperate, his words tumbling over each other. I should have told you. I should have warned you. But I thought, he broke off, his voice cracking. I thought he was gone. Miriam shook her head. He never left. He just waited. A chill crawled across my skin. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. A gesture I'd seen 100 times, but never with this level of fear. He showed up last week. Daniel said quietly, at my workshop. He watched me lock up. Didn't speak at first. Just stared. I shivered. A man who stares before speaking is a man with intentions already formed. What did he say? I asked. Daniel swallowed hard. He asked where the ring was. Miriam nodded. He believed Daniel still had it. That ring, it represented power to him. A memory of a night he lost control. And when he found out Daniel didn't have it anymore, she continued, he got angry. Daniel clenched his fists. He said I had replaced the past. Replaced everything. Miriam's voice softened. And then he said, if I can't take back what was mine, I'll take something of yours. My breath trembled. My legs felt weak. And that's why you wore the ring. I asked Miriam, voice shaking, to protect me? She nodded slowly. I hoped wearing it would confuse him, make him think it was still with me, keep him away from your home, your life. Her voice faltered, but he followed me today. That's why I went to the market. That's why I left quickly. A heavy silence settled again. This one thicker, darker. I felt Daniel's presence behind me, not close enough to touch, but close enough for me to feel the weight of his guilt pressing into the room. Why didn't you tell me? I finally whispered, turning to him. He looked at me with eyes I almost didn't recognize, eyes full of shame, fear, and something deeper. Because I didn't want our marriage to carry my darkness, he said. You were my safe place, my first real peace. I didn't want to stain that with the past. Tears blurred my vision. Daniel, marriage isn't just sharing the sunshine. It's sharing the storms too. He looked down, shoulders shaking. Miriam watched us quietly, her expression soft, not jealous, not bitter, just sad. I'm sorry you're both caught in this, she whispered. I wiped my eyes. So what now? I asked. What does this man want from me? Miriam hesitated, then reached into her bag. She pulled out an envelope. yellowed, wrinkled, stained like it had lived a hard life. She handed it to me. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a photograph, an old one, a girl, younger Miriam, standing in front of a rusted gate. Her arm bruised, her expression empty, hopeless. Behind her, slightly blurred, was a man, tall, heavy-shouldered, face shadowed, even in a photograph. I felt danger radiate from him. "What is this?" I whispered. Miriam exhaled. "It's what he showed me last week," she said. The photo was a warning, a message. Daniel's voice was barely audible. He said he still owns what was taken from him, and he wants to finish what he started. My stomach twisted painfully. "And you think he'll come here?" I asked. Miriam nodded slowly. "It's not a matter of if, but when." The house felt suddenly too quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you question every shadow, every creak, every whisper of wind outside. Daniel placed a hesitant hand on the table, not touching me, but close. "I will protect you," he said, voice trembling with both fear and determination. "I failed once in my past. I won't fail again." Miriam stood, slowly. "And that's why I came," she said. "Not to cause trouble, but because the past is already walking toward your present." She looked at the door, the same door she had knocked on minutes ago. "He wants you," she repeated softly, "because taking you would break Daniel the same way he once tried to break me." I felt tears spill. "And what do we do now?" I whispered. Miriam lifted her chin, bravery flickering through her fear. "We fight back," she said. "All of us. Together." Daniel nodded. "But before that," Miriam added carefully, "there's something else you need to know, something Daniel never told you about that night." Daniel's head snapped up. "Miriam," she shook her head firmly. "She deserves the truth." I stared between them, heart pounding. "What truth?" I asked. Miriam looked at me, her eyes full of the weight of years. "That man," she whispered, "he wasn't just after me." She took a breath. He was after Daniel, too. Chapter 6. The night everything returned. For a few seconds, the world inside the room stopped moving. I stared at Miriam. Daniel stared at the floor, and the truth sat between us like a shadow that had finally found its voice. "What do you mean, he was after Daniel, too?" I asked, my voice barely more than breath. Miriam lowered herself back into the chair, hands clasped as if steadying her memories. "That night behind the school," she began, "I thought I was the only one he wanted. I thought I was the only one trapped." Her voice trembled. "But I wasn't." Daniel closed his eyes, jaw tight, like a man hearing a ghost repeat a confession he wished he'd never heard. Miriam continued, slower this time. "He didn't chase me that night because of me. Not at first. He chased me because he saw Daniel run toward me." My heartbeat thudded painfully. Daniel exhaled, long and tired. He believed I was interfering with his power. He blamed me for interrupting what he thought he owned. The word stung like ice. Miriam nodded. He hated Daniel. Not because of anything Daniel did, but because Daniel stepped between him and his cruelty. "And that night," Daniel whispered, "I became his enemy." The room thickened with the weight of it, the fear of a past that refused to stay buried. I sat down slowly, not because I wanted to, but because my legs threatened to give out. "So all these years," I said quietly, "he's been waiting for a chance to finish what he started." Daniel lifted his head, eyes raw. "Yes." Miriam leaned forward. "He wanted the ring back because to him it represented that night, the night he lost control, the night Daniel didn't let him have what he wanted." She shook her head. "He believes taking you will force Daniel to relive that pain." The words struck like thunder. Me, a stranger to that dark chapter. a symbol to a man whose cruelty had never healed. A chill ran through me. So what do we do? I whispered. Daniel moved to sit beside me. Not touching, but close enough for me to feel the tremble in his presence. We face him, Daniel said. We tell the police. We warn the neighborhood. I won't run again. Miriam nodded. I'll help, she said. I lived through him once. I can do it again. There was strength in her voice, a quiet, steady strength grown from surviving something unbearable. I looked at her hand, the ring still catching light, still holding a history heavier than gold should ever be asked to carry. Keep the ring, I told her softly. For now, until this ends. Miriam blinked in surprise. Are you sure? I nodded. That ring belongs to the truth. And the truth started with you too. A soft silence filled the room, not painful this time, just honest. Daniel reached for my hand, waiting, not assuming, not demanding. I let him hold it. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, he said, voice breaking. I thought silence would keep you safe. Tears warmed my eyes. And look where silence has brought us, I whispered. He nodded, ashamed. But there was something else too, determination. What happens now? Miriam asked quietly. Daniel straightened, shoulders squared. We prepare, he said, for whatever comes. I took a breath, steady, deep, resolved, because sometimes the only way to end a story of running is to stop running. Together we planned. Together we talked through the night. And together we waited for the morning we would step into a truth long avoided. Family, tell me, if you were in my shoes, would you have kept the ring or thrown it away forever? And more importantly, have you ever discovered that someone you love carried a secret so heavy it nearly reached your own doorstep? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because the next story might be the one you need to hear. And until then, stay safe, stay aware, and hold your truth close.